Meet Ned Fulmer.
I'm kind of a hustler myself.
I know he puts a lot of care and work into it. Obviously, I don't do that, it just kind of comes naturally.
While the other Try Guys were skydiving, eating ghost peppers, and shaving their legs on camera, he was the guy who always reminded you he had a wife. Ned Fulmer built an entire brand off being loyal, committed, safe. A man who brought up his wife so often that it stopped being endearing and started feeling scripted. Fans called him the wife guy, and he wore the title like a badge of honor.
Any fan could make a 30-minute montage of any time Ned has mentioned his wife.
But here's the thing about building your identity on being a good guy. It only takes one bad decision to destroy the illusion. When the scandal broke, footage, timelines, receipts, it wasn't just about cheating, it was about betrayal, about trust, and the slow unraveling of a carefully curated image.
Feels weird.
This leaves us all wondering, was Ned Fulmer always living a double life? Or did the internet force him to become something he could never actually live up to? In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the rise and fall of Ned Fulmer. From BuzzFeed star to Try Guy to internet pariah. We'll break down the obsession with his wife, the cult of the wife guy, the scandal that shattered it all, and the aftermath that left a once beloved creator in digital exile. This is the story of a man who loved his wife until he didn't.
Can't cheat. I gotta do what's right.
I can't cheat. I gotta do what's right.
Elves are young forever and they're bonded forever. The two things every wedding hopes it should be.
If you know anything about this guy, you know that Ned Fulmer became famous for being the perfect husband. Not just a wife guy, the wife guy, the gold standard, the guy who couldn't make it through a single video without mentioning his wife, Ariel. For years, it was his entire personality. Fans expected it, his coworkers joked about it, and eventually it became the content itself. There were cookbooks, couple podcasts, joint appearances, Instagram captions dripping in domestic bliss. If you didn't know anything else about him, you knew he loved his wife. And for a while, that was enough to make him beloved. But then, just like that, it all came crashing down. In September 2022, the internet exploded with footage, rumors, and receipts. Ned Fulmer, the loyal husband, the family man, the guy who literally built a brand on monogamy, had allegedly cheated. Not just on his wife, but with a coworker, a subordinate, someone who worked directly under him at the company he co-founded. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional, parasocial, and public. Try Guys fans didn't just feel disappointed, they felt lied to.
We're obviously incredibly shocked and deeply hurt by all of this. This is someone who we'd built a brand and a company with for 8 years. We feel saddened, not just personally, but on behalf of our staff and our fans who believed in us.
After all, this wasn't some random influencer cheating on their spouse. This was the wife guy, the one who swore up and down that he wasn't like the rest. So, what went wrong? Was Ned Fulmer always hiding something behind that carefully polished smile? Did he genuinely love the image he sold to millions? Or was he just playing a part? And more importantly, what happens when your entire internet identity is built on being the good guy, and then you mess up in the worst, most hypocritical way? In this video, we're diving into the full story of Ned Fulmer, from his early days at BuzzFeed to the formation of the Try Guys, from his rise as a wholesome fan favorite to the very public unraveling of that image. We'll explore how he turned his marriage into content, how fans helped him build into something he may never have been, and how one scandal shattered everything he'd worked for. We'll also take a closer look at the weird world of wife guys, men who build public brands around being in love, and ask, is it ever real? Or is it always a performance? So buckle up, because the story of Ned Fulmer isn't just a fall from grace. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when the mask slips and the audience sees what's underneath. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? Edward Gallo Fulmer, better known as Ned Fulmer, was born on June 11th, 1987 in Jacksonville, Florida. If you've ever seen him in a polo shirt, khakis, and that clean-cut boy-next-door energy, then you've already met the archetype of Ned Fulmer. a middle-class, preppy, academically successful guy who walked the straight and narrow his whole life. Ned grew up in a pretty standard suburban setting. Not a child star, not a YouTuber from birth, just a smart kid in Florida with a love for science, theater, and according to his own stories, getting straight A's. He was the kind of kid who did the extra credit even when he already had an A. The kind who probably corrected the teacher's grammar by accident. Overall, from what we found out about him so far, his upbringing was safe, structured, and relatively unremarkable, which is important because that normal guy vibe would later become his brand. He attended Yale University, where he studied chemistry.
I got a degree in chemistry. I loved systems and figuring out how the world worked and building things.
It was while working as an energy chemist after college that he started his side hustle.
I was working in a renewable fuels lab in Chicago during the day. And at night, I was doing comedy shows.
Ned turned out to be a natural performer, but rather...
Yes, he wasn't just some goofball who fell into the internet. He was actually on track to have a science career.
I was able to discuss the Scoville units and how that level of pain that I was feeling was related to science.
Ned...
After college, he worked as a chemist in Chicago, specializing in researching renewable energy. He also dabbled in comedy during this time, joining local improv groups like Second City, the same place that launched the careers of Steve Carell, Tina Fey, and Stephen Colbert. You can kind of see where this is going. Nerdy science guy with a funny streak? The internet was going to eat that up. Eventually, Ned made a full pivot away from chemistry and into comedy and production. He moved to Los Angeles and started working at BuzzFeed, the digital media company that, in the mid-2010s, was pumping out viral content faster than you could say relatable.
A YouTuber or comedian, digital media entrepreneur.
There, Ned started as a development partner and video producer. At the time, BuzzFeed was the perfect platform for young, funny, internet-savvy creatives to experiment. And it's where Ned's life would take a massive turn. It was at BuzzFeed that he met Keith Habersberger, Zach Kornfield, and Eugene Liang, 3 other producers with wildly different personalities. Together, they created a series called The Try Guys, where they'd put themselves in ridiculous or awkward situations, trying on women's underwear, baking without instructions, or simulating labor pains.
Like, if this is my underwear, my balls are like schmurr. Feels like somebody put some string in my butt.
My ass is literally sucking them up, like a vacuum.
No, my butt ate the fabric. It came, it saw, it conquered. It just snarfed it right up.
In really awkward poses.
It feels kind of relaxing.
Taking a selfie. Yeah, that's a good idea. I can hear people outside. They want this food. They hungry.
They think they want it.
We got a line of people at the door, and here I am complaining about...
So yeah, there is that. Now, these videos were a huge hit. Even though BuzzFeed pumped content like clockwork, there was still an audience for this type of content, even if that audience consisted of 10-year-olds. Outside of work, his personal life seemed to mirror that same level of stability. In 2012, he married Ariel Fulmer, an interior designer and fellow Yale alum. Their relationship at this stage was private, just 2 high-achieving millennials building a life together. But that quiet domesticity wouldn't stay in the background for long. As you might have guessed by now, his relationship with Ariel is the main juice of this video. And trust us, we'll get into every bit of icky detail about it. But before we do that, we want to paint an honest picture of who this guy was publicly before he managed to sink himself knee-deep into this mess and, well, ruined his entire career. So from the beginning, each Try Guy had a clear identity. Eugene was the cool, edgy, confident one.
I'm making the gayest animal in existence, or that doesn't exist, a unicorn.
Zach was the neurotic but lovable underdog.
What's up, corn buddies, and welcome to Try Guys Game Time.
Keith was the big funny guy who loved fried chicken.
Over 60 years ago, in the small community of Mason, Tennessee, Napoleon Na Vanderbilt created a chicken recipe that could unite a community. Now that recipe is used in over 25 locations across America. Today, I'll be eating everything from Gus's world-famous fried chicken. It's gonna be great.
And Ned? Well, Ned was the married one.
My wedding ring right next to this super cute picture of us. That's right next to this other super cute picture of us.
The I love my wife guy. The one who brought his spouse into the conversation even when no one asked. It was a running joke that slowly transformed into a full-blown personality. But before we get there, it's important to recognize what Ned brought to the table in those early BuzzFeed days. He wasn't the breakout star, but he was dependable. He had that kind of sanitized charisma that made him marketable to brands. He looked like the guy you'd trust to water your plants while you're on vacation. He was a safe face in the chaotic world of early YouTube stunts and millennial cringe content. That made him valuable, marketable, and eventually powerful. During the time he worked for BuzzFeed, he was a part of diabolical videos. For instance, this video where the entire gang tried fathering robot babies.
And you have to change its diapers, you have to feed it, you have to burp it, you have to rock it.
You have to change its diaper?
How do you change a robot's diaper?
So this is like birth right now.
This is birth.
Oh. Baby's Asian.
Baby, get out. It's not alive yet, right? I'm allowed to mishandle it?
No.
This video was posted on the BuzzFeed video YouTube channel a decade ago, and it has almost 17 million views right now. Besides, there is a plethora of weird videos by the Try Guys if you go over to the BuzzFeed channel. Try Guys try boob contouring. Try Guys try wedding dresses. The Try Guys intimate with each other. We mean, you get the idea. From eating spicy wings to wearing women's lingerie to getting prostate exams on camera, their videos blended cringe comedy with unexpected vulnerability. And people loved it. If not, they at least watched it. The Try Guys didn't just bring in views, they brought in millions of fans, loyal ones. They became a defining part of BuzzFeed's video identity. At their peak, their videos were pulling in tens of millions of views per month. And they were one of the few BuzzFeed series that managed to feel like something more than just a trend-chasing stunt. But here's the thing about BuzzFeed. It was a launch pad, not a long-term home. As BuzzFeed's content factory pumped out new faces and formats every week, the stars behind the most successful shows started realizing something. They weren't just working for BuzzFeed, they were BuzzFeed. They were the reason people clicked. And eventually, they wanted more than just a paycheck. They wanted ownership. This led to a pretty noticeable pattern. Once a BuzzFeed star went viral, they'd often leave the company and build their own brand. Take Sophia Nygaard, for example. She rose to popularity on BuzzFeed's Ladylike series, then left in 2017 to launch her own YouTube channel, where she now has over 10 million subscribers.
Hello friends, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about why I left BuzzFeed. This is a very requested video topic. A lot of you guys have been asking me about this, and
She created a whole identity around trying weird beauty products and mixing every lipstick at Sephora into a horrifying mutated Frankenshade, and people ate it up. Then there's Quinta Brunson, who got her start at BuzzFeed with short-form comedy, and has since gone on to create and star in Abbott Elementary, winning Emmys and becoming a mainstream TV powerhouse. The Try Guys saw the writing on the wall. They weren't just content creators anymore, they were a brand, and they didn't want to keep making viral gold for someone else. So in 2018, they officially left BuzzFeed and launched their own production company, Second Try LLC. It was a bold move, but a smart one. They took with them the Try Guys name, their IP, their audience, and most importantly, full control. Now they were no longer just four guys trying things. They were entrepreneurs, content executives, and the faces of a rapidly growing media empire. And with that move, Ned Fulmer went from BuzzFeed employee to co-founder of a business that would carry his face and his wife into everything from merch and podcasts to books and touring shows. But while the other guys focused on their individual lanes, Keith with his love of food, Eugene with creative directing and LGBTQ+ storytelling, Zach with chronic pain awareness and quirky humor, Ned went all in on being the family man, the dad, the husband, the wife guy. He even posted an emotional video filming his first week as a father. He talked about how he bonded with his kid with skin-to-skin contact, how being a dad just naturally comes to him.
The days have all blended together. There is no day and night. There is only sleep, eat, poop. For both me and the baby.
He also showed his audience how his newborn baby was in the NICU for a while after being born, which again, we're not a big fan of.
Nobody wants to have a sick baby. And there are some parents that are there for a month as their baby just gets bigger and gets healthier.
They put him in a little plastic case.
Sharing deeply personal medical information, especially about a newborn, with the entire internet is never a great idea. A baby can't consent, they can't choose what parts of their life are made public, and turning such a vulnerable moment into content, no matter how well-intentioned it might seem, just doesn't sit right. Some things deserve to stay private, and your child's health should be at the top of that list. However, despite that, the comments flooded in praising Ned for being the best father ever. For the record, this video was posted on the Try Guys channel almost 6 years ago and has over 4 million views. We're going to read some of the comments under this video to give you an idea of how much people praise Ned for being a hero husband and a dad. I hate seeing Ned upset. He's so sweet. I honestly cannot stand him crying. He is going to be the best dad. I seriously cannot stand Ned crying. It shatters me. Literally the sweetest guy. He will be the best dad. I've never seen a dad speaking of his baby with so much love. I wish your wonderful family the best of the world. This is the most real thing ever. You can see how this affected him. And as well as Ariel, I've gained even more respect for Ned because this is the hardest thing for a parent to go through. I mean, what a great guy, right? However, at that time, no one could have predicted just how much that carefully curated image was going to cost him. He was the symbol of modern masculinity, emotionally available, funny, competent, and above all, committed. Or at least, that's what it looked like. What fans didn't know, or maybe didn't want to know, was that behind the scenes, cracks were starting to form. The persona was too perfect, too rehearsed. And in the internet age, no mask stays on forever. In the early Try Guys videos, it started innocently. He'd casually mention his wife Ariel in passing, during a challenge, a reaction, or even just a joke. It was charming at first. You could almost hear the audience collectively sigh, "Oh, he's one of the good ones." The bar for men on the internet was, let's be honest, underground. So a guy who was openly devoted to his partner, that was refreshing. But then something happened. What began as a trait slowly became a bit, and the bit became a brand. Before long, it became impossible to watch a Try Guys video without hearing some variation of, "My wife says I shouldn't do this. My wife is the best. I love my wife." Every single time. Sometimes it was relevant. Sometimes it was just there. Whether they were trying hot sauces, giving each other makeovers, or simulating childbirth, Ned somehow found a way to wedge in a reference to Ariel. It became a running joke, even among the other Try Guys. Fans started calling him Wife Guy in the comments. Reddit threads joked about how you could turn it into a drinking game. Ariel herself began appearing in videos, podcasts, and even photo shoots, almost becoming a pseudo-member of the Try Guys brand. And it didn't stop at offhand references. Ned and Ariel eventually leaned into the image. They released a cookbook together, the Date Night Cookbook, filled with romantic recipes and cozy lifestyle content. They hosted a podcast, Baby Steps, where they talked about marriage and parenting with the kind of curated vulnerability that Instagram thrives on.
We have a new podcast!
Woo! It's called Baby Steps.
The raw, the real, the messy, the dirty, the poop in your big boy pants stories of parenting.
They made TikToks together. They did photo shoots. Ned wore I Love My Wife t-shirts, unironically. We actually came across this very hilarious complication video of Ned simply saying "my wife" over and over again. If you still don't get the obsession, he even named his car after his wife, the Ariel. At one point, the Try Guys even released collectible figurines of themselves, little plastic versions of each member, each saying a signature catchphrase that summed up their personality. Keith said something to do with food, Eugene's oozed style and sass, Zach's reflected his self-deprecating humor, and Ned's, you guessed it, his figurine literally said, "my wife."
My wife!
That was the entire identity they packaged for him. Not Science Guy Ned, not Dad Ned, not even Try Guy Ned, just my wife. It was the most literal plastic embodiment of the character he had built, a man whose entire brand had been boiled down to being publicly obsessed with his spouse. At the time, fans found it cute, funny, and consistent. In hindsight, it feels like a glaring red flag gift wrapped in shrink wrap. He was no longer just a guy who had a wife. He was the guy who had a wife. Capital letters, trademark pending. And to be fair, it worked. Fans loved it. In an era of cheating scandals, influencer breakups, and messy public meltdowns, Ned was consistent. He was wholesome. He was loyal. Or so it seemed. That's why it sold. Because people wanted to believe in him. But if you looked closely, there was something very weird about this persona from the very beginning. Because the longer the wife guy thing went on, the more manufactured it started to feel. What once felt like genuine affection started reading like a bit he couldn't turn off. He was shoehorning mentions into places they didn't belong. It felt like someone desperately clinging to a character they knew the audience liked. And let's not forget, he was still a co-founder of the Try Guys company. His image wasn't just personal anymore, it was profitable. Behind every wholesome marriage post was a business opportunity. Every I love my wife joke was followed by a merch drop, or a podcast link, or a new brand partnership. He was the literal embodiment of marriage content creator, except cloaked in the language of authenticity. And yet people didn't question it, because Ned had set the bar so high for himself that no one even imagined he could fall. Even within the Try Guys fandom, a quiet fatigue had set in. But still, Ned doubled down. Because in many ways he had to. He had built an entire personality and business identity on being the good husband, the safe man, the wholesome dad. And as we would later find out, that persona was doing a lot of heavy lifting. Because behind the wife guy mask was someone making very unwife guy decisions. But before we talk about that collapse, let's step back and understand just how deeply Ned and Ariel's relationship was embedded into the Try Guys brand itself. Because once the truth came out, it wasn't just a scandal. It was a betrayal of something the audience had emotionally invested in. Ariel, in turn, became a fixture of Try Guys content. She wasn't just Ned's wife off screen. She was a recurring character, co-host, co-author, podcast partner, and merch model. She appeared in Try It videos, couples challenges, behind-the-scenes content, Instagram posts, and even business photo shoots.
Why would you ask me that? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, baby. I asked Ned what he wanted me to say, because that's how you keep a marriage together. He did not know what to tell, because he's told a lot of his secrets.
They put a lot of stuff on the internet.
Most of his secrets are out there. The thing that Ned doesn't talk about very much is...
The Try Guys even leaned into the dual couple dynamic by pairing Ariel with Becky Habersberger, Keith's wife, turning them into a mini franchise of their own. The two co-hosted the You Can Sit With Us podcast, a lighthearted lifestyle show that covered everything from parenting to pop culture to skincare. It was another clever extension of the Try Guys brand, turning the wives into creators and keeping fans emotionally invested. And then came the cookbook. In 2021, Ned and Ariel published the Date Night Cookbook, a highly curated, Instagrammable lifestyle product packed with romantic recipes, cheeky anecdotes, and polished couples photos. It was a brand extension that essentially said, "Look how perfect our marriage is. Don't you want to buy a piece of it?" It sold well. Fans adored it, and why wouldn't they? There was the way Ned would overemphasize his love for Ariel in videos, almost as if reminding the audience, and maybe himself, of the role he was playing. There were awkwardly forced moments where he'd compare other women to his wife, or mention Ariel in contexts where it didn't make any narrative sense. It stopped being natural and started feeling like brand maintenance. There's a reason people started joking online that Ned would bring up his wife even if the video was about chainsaws or foot fungus. Some fans started to wonder, was Ned really that obsessed with his marriage? Or was it just his marketing strategy? And that's the dangerous part about branding yourself around being a good guy. At the end of the day, Ned Fulmer wasn't the first wife guy. He wasn't even the first to monetize fatherhood. He was part of a much bigger wave of men who figured out that the internet loves a guy who appears to love his wife and kids, especially if he does the kind of emotional labor or basic parenting that society still treats like a miracle when performed by a man. Hold a baby? Icon. Fold laundry? Husband of the year. Remember his partner's birthday without being reminded? Nobel Peace Prize. Somewhere along the way, simply not being a terrible partner became a brand. And the men who leaned into that image, they were rewarded with clicks, followers, book deals, brand sponsorships, podcast interviews, and yes, endless praise. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of them weren't actually doing the work. They were just curating the appearance of doing the work. Take a look at any platform, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and you'll find this same pattern repeating itself. A man posts a photo of himself changing a diaper, holding a baby carrier, or making dinner. The caption is something like, "Mom's night off, stepping up tonight." Comments flood in, "OMG, you're such a good dad. Can we clone you? A man like this is so rare." But zoom out, and what you'll often find is that the guy isn't really doing this every day. He's doing it just enough to capture content, just enough to create the illusion. You could call it Instagram husband syndrome, except the reverse. They weren't background players, they're the main characters in a show where the plot is. Look how amazing I am for being decent. In Ned Fulmer's case, it was the ultimate long con. He wasn't just a guy who mentioned his wife, he was the wife guy. He wasn't just a father, he branded himself as a hands-on dad, co-hosting a parenting podcast and even talking about the pressures of modern fatherhood. And yet if you actually looked at the content, something started to feel off. There were no real messy moments, no raw footage, no unfiltered glimpses into what being a working parent actually looks like. It was all polished, filtered, camera-ready, the version of parenting you see in a Target ad. And when rare glimpses into real life did happen, like Ned changing a diaper or staying home with a sick kid, it almost always came with a photo, a tweet, a TikTok, or a subtle brag, as if to say, "Look, I'm doing it, clap for me." But let's be honest, he wasn't the only one. Plenty of men in influencer space, and even celebrity world, have ridden the same wave. Adam Levine, for example, built an entire soft boy image around being a romantic husband, only to be exposed for sliding into strangers' DMs with messages that would low-key leave you questioning love. Or John Mulaney, once the internet's ultimate wife guy, had fans devastated when he left his wife, went to rehab, and then had a baby with Olivia Munn. A full public pivot that left fans feeling like the wholesome version of him they had invested in wasn't real at all. Even YouTube family vloggers like Austin McBroom of the Ace family have been accused of cheating, all while pushing out squeaky clean, hyper-produced family content. It's a pattern. These men realize that being emotionally available, supportive, and loyal makes them marketable, and they package it. But deep down, the content is more about optics than reality. It's about being seen doing the thing, not consistently, quietly doing it when no one's watching. Now, before we get to the next part of the video, let's be clear about something important. This isn't about hating men. It's not even about hating dads who post sweet things about their families online. There are incredible fathers, husbands, and partners out there, men who show up every day, quietly doing the hard, unglamorous work of parenting and partnership without turning it into a performance. There are single dads raising kids on their own, and single moms doing the same, and their work is no less valuable because it isn't filmed, filtered, or monetized. This isn't about men versus women. It's about calling out a very specific kind of behavior, the wife guy routine, where love and loyalty are turned into a brand, and the bare minimum becomes a business model. So if you're out there doing the real work, no matter who you are, we see you and we appreciate you wholeheartedly. Also, we know we've probably said the term wife guys 5,000 times in this video, but we don't know if you guys are familiar with the term in itself, because we weren't sure before we looked into Ned Fulmer. So what exactly is a wife guy? According to Wikipedia, a wife guy is a man whose fame is owed to their content he posts about his wife. The term has been applied more broadly to men who use their wives to upgrade their social standing or public persona. The term exploded in popularity online as a way to describe men, often influencers or celebrities, who built a large part of their identity, personality, or brand around the fact that they have a wife. It's not just that they love their partner, which is great, it's that they won't stop telling you about it, constantly, publicly, performatively. It's become shorthand for a certain kind of over-the-top curated husband energy, the kind where loving your spouse is less about actual connection and more about social media clout. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's cringe, and sometimes, as we've seen, it's a smokescreen for something much more hypocritical underneath. Now let's get to the real tea. What actually happened? It all started in September 2022. A month that, on the surface, seemed completely ordinary in the Try Guys universe. Ned Fulmer was doing what he always did, posting selfies with Ariel, gushing about married life, and promoting their shared ventures like the date night cookbook. The Try Guys were still going strong. Their company was thriving. There was no public drama, no hints of anything going wrong. Ned had been part of the Try Guys for over a decade at this point, first at BuzzFeed, then as a co-founder of their independent production company. He wasn't just part of the brand, he was the brand. The wife guy, the family man, the relatable, down-to-earth dad who just happened to be on YouTube. And then it happened. Out of nowhere, screenshots and blurry video clips began circulating on Reddit and Twitter. A fan claimed to have spotted Ned at a New York City bar, making out with a woman who was most definitely not his wife. The post went viral within hours. The internet went into full detective mode, analyzing the footage, comparing outfits, and cross-referencing social media stories. For the record, these are the pictures that went viral, where you can clearly see Ned making out with a girl who's definitely not Ariel. And honestly, it was just dumb. Like, genuinely, how stupid can you be? You're a public figure. Your whole job revolves around being seen, and yet you're out here getting cozy and making out in a literal nightclub, surrounded by people with smartphones, in one of the most photographed cities in the world. This wasn't a slip-up behind closed doors. This was reckless, loud, and public. It's one thing to make a bad decision. It's another to do it where any random fan could whip out their phone and blow up your entire life in 15 seconds. For someone who helped run a content empire and understood how internet culture works, this wasn't just morally shady, it was straight up brainless. But it didn't stop there. Soon people realized the woman in the video wasn't just a random stranger. It was actually Alex Herring, a producer and on-camera talent at Second Try LLC. She was also featured regularly in Try Guys videos, and some of their moments together have been pretty weird, to be honest.
I'm a mattress commercial!
Yeah, but you really are, though. Like,
Yeah, it is pretty nice.
it's kind of nice. Bruh. I have to give my favorite award to Alexandria, who shares a love of drinking ranch dressing straight from the bottle.
Yeah, very good.
But here's the kicker. She was engaged at the time.
My name's Alexandria, associate producer here at the Try Guys. I am engaged. We've been together for about 10.5 years.
So yeah, there is that. And the more you zoom out, the worse it gets. Ned wasn't just cheating, he was cheating on his wife of nearly a decade, the same woman he built his entire public identity around. They had 2 young kids together. He had written books with her, co-hosted a podcast, and turned their marriage into a brand. And who was he cheating with? Not just anyone, a subordinate, a producer on the Try Guys team who worked under him in the company hierarchy. That's a huge power imbalance right there. Oh, and on top of that, she was engaged too, to someone she'd been with for 10 years. 10 years! It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal layered with workplace ethics issues, emotional fallout, and public humiliation for multiple people involved. It wasn't just messy, it was insane. Like, how do you burn down your whole house, your family, your job, your reputation for something that's sloppy and unethical? Now, you might be thinking it was just one picture, a blurry, dimly lit snapshot taken at night of someone who looks like Ned kissing someone who looks like Alex. It's not exactly courtroom evidence. Where's the benefit of the doubt? And honestly, we and the fans would have been more than happy to give them that. If it had stopped there, maybe it could have been chalked up to a weird angle or a case of mistaken identity. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because soon more evidence started to surface. Multiple people came forward with eyewitness accounts. There were photos, videos, alleged DMs. It quickly stopped being a rumor and started looking a lot like reality. The sheer number of people confirming the sighting, the digital footprints left behind, it all made the story incredibly believable. This wasn't just gossip, it was a snowball that couldn't be stopped. One of the biggest confirmations that the cheating scandal was real came from yet another public sighting, this time at a Harry Styles concert at MSG, short for Madison Square Garden, a massive arena in New York City. That's right, Ned and Alex were allegedly spotted together at one of the most high-profile events in one of the most recognizable venues in the world. The very first account of an eyewitness that we came across on Reddit was this post titled, "Saw Ned and Alex at MSG on September 1st. The rest of the post read, "I passed them on your way to the 200 level on the escalators. It was 9 p.m. and we were running to our seats because Harry was about to go on and the escalators were basically empty. I got a selfie. Alex was annoyed that I recognized and was talking to them. It was just the two of them and didn't see anyone else, but they might have joined people in seats. We thought if that were the case, there would be some pics shared on social media and you kept your eyes open for them, but nobody posted anything. So Ned and Alex were apparently alone at the concert. No friends, no coworkers, no group outing to explain it away. Just the two of them, together in public, at one of the most popular concerts of the year. And let's be real, if you're trying to keep a workplace affair under wraps, this is just about the worst possible way to do it. But here's the thing, this wasn't the only evidence people had. The internet had already started piecing things together. Ned and Alex have also been spotted at a restaurant, again alone. The picture is captioned, "Submitting this late, but in light of Ned leaving the Try Guys, I saw him at La Artusi in May this year with Alex." This information came from Dumois. If you were following the scandal in real time, you probably saw the name Dumois pop up a few times. For those who don't know, this is a popular celebrity gossip account on Instagram, kind of like a modern-day anonymous tip line for Hollywood drama. People send in stories, sightings, or screenshots, and Dumois shares them, often uncensored, for millions of followers to see. During the height of the Ned Fulmer scandal, multiple tips about him and Alex were submitted to Dumois, confirming sightings, dates, even the Harry Styles concert appearance. And while Dumois isn't always known for airtight fact-checking, the posts they shared only added more fuel to the fire. It wasn't just Reddit detectives or Twitter threads anymore. It was mainstream gossip pipelines picking up the story. That's when it became clear. This wasn't going away quietly. The worst part of this entire scandal isn't just that Ned cheated, it's that multiple lives were completely upended because of it. There wasn't just one victim here, there were at least two people whose entire worlds were shaken. On one side, there was Ariel Fulmer, Ned's wife and the mother of his two children, who had built a public life, a brand, and a family with him over more than a decade of marriage. She wasn't just his partner in private, she was his co-author, podcast co-host, and a regular face in the Try Guys universe. She had trusted him with her life, her career, and her family. And then on the other side was Will Thayer, Alex Herring's fiancé. Now this is something that we don't see a lot of people talking about. He was not a casual boyfriend, not someone she had just started dating. Will and Alex had been together for over 10 years. They were engaged to be married. According to reports, they lived together, had shared plans for the future, and were in what seemed to be a stable, long-term relationship. And just like Ariel, Will didn't find out because of a private confession. He found out with the rest of the internet, watching his partner's face go viral in a cheating scandal. What makes it even worse is that these weren't just quiet behind-the-scenes relationships. Both couples had shared their love publicly, on social media, in interviews, on YouTube. They had opened their lives up to audiences and invited them into their homes and relationships. And in one reckless decision, that trust was shattered, not just between the couples, but between them and their entire fan base. This wasn't a harmless office romance or a private mistake. It was a very public betrayal with very real emotional consequences for the people who trusted Ned and Alex the most. And they weren't just betrayed in private. They had to live through that betrayal on the internet, in front of millions of strangers dissecting every frame of evidence and every ounce of drama. As if the situation wasn't already messy enough, the way Will Thayer, Alex's fiancé, allegedly found out about the affair made everything even more painful. Like we said, it wasn't Alex who came clean. Instead, a Reddit user who had spotted Ned and Alex getting too close in public decided to take matters into their own hands. This user allegedly reached out to Will directly, sending him screenshots and photographic evidence of the affair. The messages, which later circulated widely online, showed the user calmly explaining what they saw, attaching photos. These are the messages we're talking about. It starts with this user texting Will saying, "Hi, I was just wondering if Alex was in NYC, because if so, I think there is something you should know, unfortunately." Will replied with, "Yes, she was. Why?" Then the user said, "So basically, I went out to Niagara, the club last night, and saw her making out with Ned from the Try Guys. I have videos if needed. She was wearing a red dress. I don't know if that helps." Then Will asks the user to send the pictures. And to be honest, that was enough to know what was going on. Now, Will reacted in the most unpredictable way to this cheating news. According to Digital Market News, Will's friend Steven Kazor posted an Instagram photo showing the two sharing a glass at Hollywood's Jones Bar and Grill. The caption was casually celebratory, "If you know, you know," suggesting that Will was trying to move on or at least find some release during a rough time. It felt almost symbolic. Right after his fiancée over a decade is publicly linked to a scandal with her coworker, he's off trying to process it, with champagne no less. Critics saw it as either a defiant public statement or simply how someone copes when their life falls apart overnight. And for someone who'd already given so much to the relationship, it was a heartbreaking sight. But he wasn't the only person who was hurt by this scandal. The Try Guys were also disappointed, and so were the fans. About 2 weeks after the scandal first erupted online, the Try Guys finally broke their silence. And when they did, it was clear that the damage was beyond repair. In a formal statement released across their social media platforms, they announced that Ned Fulmer was no longer working with the Try Guys. Just like that, a founding member of one of YouTube's most recognizable groups was gone. They posted this on their Instagram saying, "Ned Fulmer is no longer working with the Try Guys. As a result of a thorough internal review, we do not see a path forward together. We thank you for your support as we navigate this change." Fans were shocked, not only by the swiftness of the decision, but by how serious and final it sounded. Soon after, they posted a video titled "What Happened," where Keith, Zach, and Eugene sat together, visibly upset, and explained how deeply this had affected them both professionally and personally. They made it clear that trust had been broken, that lines had been crossed, and that keeping Ned on the team simply wasn't an option anymore. For a group that had built its success on friendship, relatability, and authenticity, this moment marked the end of an era.
Ned confirmed the reports and since confirmed that this had been going on for some time, which was obviously very shocking to us, and we just want you to know that we had no idea this was going on. All of that information was just as shocking to us as all of this has been for you this week.
And thus began a 3-week process of engaging with employment lawyers, corporate lawyers, HR, PR, and more, in order to make sure we were taking all necessary steps. From the jump, we were acutely aware of just how contrary this was to the values of the company we've built and those of everyone who works here. This is something we took very seriously. We refused to sweep things under the rug. That is not who we are, and it's not what we stand for.
We immediately removed Ned from work activities and engaged an HR professional to conduct a thorough review of the facts.
Not only did the Try Guys completely disassociate themselves from Ned, but they went all in on removing any trace of him from their ongoing projects. They began editing him out of recent videos, even reshooting or shelving content that was too difficult to salvage. If a frame had Ned in it, he was either cropped, blurred, or cut entirely. In some cases, episodes that had already been filmed were never released at all. It didn't stop there. Ned was also removed from upcoming merchandise, promotional materials, intros, and even thumbnails. His presence across the brand was scrubbed with quiet urgency, as if to make it clear. They weren't just distancing themselves, they were rebuilding without him. It wasn't just a PR move, it was a full-on reset, both for their image and for their audience's trust. The message was loud and clear. Ned Fulmer was no longer a Try Guy in any sense of the word. And honestly speaking, they did the right thing. The remaining Try Guys, Keith, Zach, and Eugene, didn't owe the internet a scandal, but they did owe their fans honesty. And in a time where situations like this are often swept under the rug, buried behind vague PR statements, they chose accountability instead. They didn't make excuses, they didn't deflect, and most importantly, they didn't protect someone just because he was their friend or co-founder. And that matters. They didn't deserve to be shamed or blamed for the actions of one, or in this case, two people on their team. They were blindsided too. But instead of panicking or covering it up, they addressed it head on, made tough decisions, and moved forward with transparency. Now, for those who might still be a little confused about the whole timeline of the Ned Fulmer and Alex Herring cheating scandal, this Reddit post does a pretty solid job of summing things up. It's a fan-submitted recap that walks through the key details and events. And for anyone who didn't catch the drama as it unfolded in real time, this can help make sense of how it all exploded. The post reads as follows. December 2021. Alex's fiancé Will went through her phone and saw her and Ned had hooked up while on some work trip. They ended up staying together, but Will reached out to Ned, warning him to back off. Beginning of this month, I want to say 9/1 or 9/2, Will and Ned's wife Ariel received videos and pictures from a few people showing Ned and Alex making out at a club, as well as holding hands during the day at a market in New York City. Alex had just landed in NYC to meet up with the Try Guys and their SOs, but got the news, confronted Ned, and when he confirmed him and Alex had been in a relationship for almost a year, she got back on a plane and came back to LA immediately. Not sure how the NYC event played out, but Ned and Alex were suspended almost immediately. When Try Guys had talks with employees, many said they noticed flirting, knew they had lunch hookups, stayed at each other's places occasionally, and showed up to events together. Example, Harry Styles concert, and had a big feels something was up. So this news had been aware to the Try Guys for close to a month, but what sparked the social media questioning and then uproar a few days back was Will releasing some images of the DMs he received on Reddit. Obviously, Ned has been fired. Now that you understand the whole timeline and what actually happened, we'd like to now talk about what it did. There are two people we've barely talked about yet, Ariel Fulmer and Ned himself. After the scandal broke, both of them essentially vanished from the public eye, entering a sort of self-imposed digital exile. Ariel understandably pulled back from all media appearances, and truthfully, who could blame her? While she never gave a full interview or deep dive into her side of things, she did post a short statement on Instagram shortly after the news broke, saying, "Thanks to everyone who has reached out to me. It means a lot. Nothing is more important to me and Ned than our family, and all we request right now is that you respect our privacy for the sake of our kids." Ned's statement, posted around the same time, wasn't much longer. In it, he admitted to the affair, writing, "Family should have always been my priority, but I lost focus and had a consensual workplace relationship. I'm sorry for any pain my actions may have caused to the guys and the fans, but most of all to Ariel. The only thing that matters right now is my marriage and my children." After that, both accounts went quiet for quite a while. However, this didn't stop people from speculating. There was a lot of discussion on the internet and Reddit surrounding their relationship status and what they were going to do next. Although they didn't release any public statement regarding their marriage for a while, they were spotted multiple times walking in the park and even attending Taylor Swift's concert. One of the few public moments involving Ned and Ariel after the scandal came through the lens of a paparazzi camera. On October 4th, 2022, just days after Ned had been officially removed from the Try Guys and had publicly admitted to cheating on Ariel, the couple was photographed walking together in Los Angeles. It was a casual afternoon stroll, no security, no disguises, just the two of them side by side in plain view. What stood out in most of those images wasn't necessarily their body language, which to be fair was a little stiff and tense, but the fact that both Ned and Ariel were still visibly wearing their wedding rings. For fans and followers who had assumed Ariel would immediately separate from him or go full scorched earth after what had happened, this was a curveball. The sight of those rings sparked a wave of speculation. Were they still together? Were they working things out privately? Was this just a one-time meeting to talk about the kids? When paparazzi asked the couple if they were working things out, they reluctantly replied with a yes and drove away.
Hi guys. Hey, are you guys working things out?
Yeah.
You are?
Working things out.
Well, that's good to hear. Hi Ariel. Hi Ned. Hey, what's next in your career, Ned? Okay. Okay, sure thing. Have a good day.
The sighting, despite being relatively mundane, was dissected intensely online. Some fans saw it as a sign of strength, a couple attempting to move forward in private. Others were frustrated, especially considering how much Ned's betrayal had hurt his brand and their collective image as the perfect couple. But the October 2022 paparazzi sighting wasn't the only time Ned and Ariel were seen together after the scandal. In fact, more recently, the two were spotted at Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, attending the concert alongside their son, Wesley, and friends. This sighting once again reignited the conversation about the current state of their relationship. The fact that they were attending such a high-profile event together and with their child suggested that their bond hadn't completely shattered in the aftermath of the affair. Now, the big question a lot of people still grapple with is, should something like this destroy a relationship completely? And honestly, the answer isn't one size fits all. For many, cheating, especially the kind that involves deception, power dynamics at work, and public embarrassment, is a total deal breaker. It's not just about kissing someone else, it's about trust, safety, and respect being shattered. But for others, particularly couples with long histories, shared children, and deeply intertwined lives, it's not always so simple. People can work through infidelity, but it takes serious accountability, transparency, therapy, and time. And even then, it's no guarantee that the relationship will feel whole again. What makes Ned's situation harder to digest is that his entire public persona was built around how much he loved his wife. So when he betrayed that image, it didn't just feel like a personal mistake, it felt like a lie to everyone watching. That said, every couple is different, and if Ariel chose to stay and rebuild, that decision deserves just as much respect as walking away would. It's not about being weak or foolish. It's about doing what feels right for you, even when the internet has already made up its mind. In a video by licensed psychologist Dr. Melissa Estavillo, she explains that while infidelity is deeply painful, relationships can recover from cheating, but only under very specific conditions. The unfaithful partner must show genuine remorse, take full accountability, and be completely transparent moving forward, while the betrayed partner must be willing to engage in the slow, emotional process of healing and rebuilding trust. According to Dr. Estavillo, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or returning to how things were, but rather creating a new, honest dynamic built on mutual understanding. It requires hard emotional labor, often with the help of therapy, and a deep commitment from both people to move forward. In short, cheating doesn't always mean the end, but the road back is long, painful, and not guaranteed.
Question. Is it ever possible for a relationship to heal after someone has cheated? As a psychologist and someone that specializes in working with couples, I will tell you that yeah, that absolutely is possible. So all of us know that when someone's cheated in a relationship, the chances are very high that the relationship could end. That these can often be very damaging experiences that doesn't lead to any hope or opportunity for the relationship to heal. But I have seen so many relationships in which two partners are willing to work really hard, be in a place where they are open to healing and growth and doing all of the things that are necessary to be able to come back to a positive place. And it's totally possible for relationships to be able to heal and even, as ironic as it sounds, end up being better than they were before they started. Not that the cheating was a good thing, I will never say that, but it's amazing what hard work can really do to be able to fix things that were broken before you even knew that they were. So the answer is yes. It is absolutely possible for people to heal after cheating.
In Ned's case, it's still unclear whether staying in the relationship was the right decision, especially considering the nature of the cheating. This wasn't just a one-time mistake, it was probably a long-term affair with a subordinate, carried out by a man who had built an entire public identity around being the perfect husband. That kind of betrayal hits differently. And while it's ultimately Ariel's choice whether to stay or leave, it's important to acknowledge that many women often feel pressured to stay in toxic or unfaithful relationships, not because they're okay with what happened, but because of the kids, the shared history, or the belief that things can go back to how they once were. Some may stay because they've been conditioned to prioritize family stability over personal happiness, or because they don't fully recognize their own worth. In situations like these, it's not just about love, it's about survival, identity, and sometimes even fear. So while we can't speak for Ariel's reasons, we can understand that leaving isn't always as easy as it seems from the outside. However, at the same time, there have always been subtle red flags, even from Ariel's own words. There's a particular clip that resurfaced from a while ago where Ariel talks candidly about Ned, and to be honest, it's uncomfortable to watch.
Like Ned and I had the same thing to do one day, and we were here in the office, and we were doing like some PR for the cookbook. We did it, and we drove our car separately here because I think both of us were done for the day. And at 4:30, I'm like, okay, I need to go home so that I can be home when to take care of the kids. And Ned's like, okay, I'll see you in like an hour and a half. I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why don't I stay here and do work and I'll see you in an hour and a half? It was just such an interesting thing. It didn't even occur to me.
Her tone is strained, her words are careful, and the vibe is off. She describes their dynamic in a way that doesn't scream perfect marriage, but rather something more complicated. It's the kind of moment you might brush off as a joke or just awkward honesty at first. But when viewed in the context of everything that's happened since, it paints a different picture. It raises the question, was Ned ever really the doting, supportive husband he portrayed himself to be? Or was that just the carefully curated version meant for the internet? Because if you look closely, the cracks were always there. It's just that people didn't want to see them. And then there's Alex, the other half of this mess. Ever since the scandal broke, people have been digging through old footage, trying to figure out whether this was a one-time slip-up or something that had been brewing under the surface for a while. And honestly, the internet might be onto something. There's a compilation video floating around filled with suspicious moments between Alex and Ned. Subtle glances, borderline flirty jokes, weird tension in otherwise normal work settings. And once you watch it, it's hard to unsee.
Mattress commercial!
No, but you really are, though.
Yeah, it is pretty nice.
It's kind of nice. Bruh. I have to give my favorite award to Alexandria. Who shares a love of drinking ranch dressing straight from the bottle.
Yeah, very good.
It's a great stuff, my lord. I feel like today I'm the fun food daddy.
I think you're gonna make it.
Does our audience know that about Alexandria?
Oh, I think they have
She's
to
very
right now.
persuasive, especially when it comes to giving shots.
Ooh, maybe we'll have our favorite food daddy as well.
Oh, I hope it's me. I need help from a specialist.
Could you eat one more piece?
For you, Alexandria? Of course not. He's a 10, but he's already married. Kind of as if your Midwestern white friends met Jewish people for the first time and tried to serve them Chinese food for Christmas.
I miss Ned.
I miss Ned too.
Whoa! Hello. Hey
It was good.
It's not good.
If it was good, I'd put this in my mouth and go, oh.
While none of it screams outright affair at the time, in hindsight it's clear that the red flags, however small, were always there. These weren't just coworkers. There was a chemistry that didn't quite fit the boundaries of a professional relationship, and fans who rewatched their old videos picked up on the vibes they'd previously ignored. That being said, we would now like to talk about their current life. What is Ned and Ariel's status right now? Because this seems to be a burning question with no proper answer. We tried to look at Ariel's social media to get an idea of what's going on, but she's since privatized her account. As of now, there is no official record of a divorce, and both Ned and Ariel continue to use the Fulmer surname on social media. That said, Reddit discussions hint at a possible separation. Some users report that Ariel has quietly moved on, starting a ceramics business, going private on Instagram, and maintaining her brand independently. Others believe they're still together in some capacity, like co-parenting their children, even attending events like the Eras Tour as a family. In short, the couple seems to be in a private gray zone, not officially divorced, but not actively presenting as the perfect marriage either. Ariel appears to be carving out her own path beyond the wife guy image, while Ned stays mostly silent and out of the spotlight, possibly working behind the scenes. Besides this, one of the biggest lingering questions online is, how exactly are the Fulmers making money now? Because for years, Ned and Ariel were deeply embedded in the content world. Between the Try Guys, their cookbooks, their podcast Baby Steps, Ariel's lifestyle brand, and countless sponsored posts, they were basically a mini media empire, and a profitable one at that. But after the scandal, both of them essentially vanished from the internet. Ned stopped posting almost entirely, and Ariel significantly scaled back her public presence. No ads, no new podcast episodes, no book tours. It's left fans wondering, what's paying the bills? Are they living off savings from their peak content days? Does Ned have some behind-the-scenes consulting gig now? Is Ariel working privately or focusing on a small-scale business? A Reddit user asked the same question, expressing his need for information on Ned Fulmer. He wrote, "I care less about the state of their relationship than I do about the practicalities of dropping off the face of the earth for a year. They were chronically online and both derived their incomes from Try Guys LLC, which Ned was removed from. You'd think Ariel would be doing brand deals again by now, or using the interest to launch herself as a mommy blogger or something." We thought this question had a point, so we did a little bit of digging and found out that Ned has been doing some other things. He actually recently updated his LinkedIn profile. According to his updated bio, Ned is currently the founder of Fulmer Media Inc., a company that, as described on the profile, develops IP for studios and invests in major brands. It's a vague description, and there's not much public information available about any actual projects, clients, or partnerships. Still, the update suggests he's trying to pivot behind the scenes, away from being a public-facing personality to someone more involved in the business and development side of media. He's also made subtle changes that signal a rebrand. Ned now frames himself as producer, writer, host, and continues to flaunt the New York Times bestseller status he earned with the Date Night Cookbook. He no longer mentions the Try Guys directly in his main bio, but instead lumps it into a list of former affiliations. The tone of his LinkedIn suggests a more corporate, polished version of Ned, someone trying to quietly restart without attracting too much attention. Beyond LinkedIn, some fans noticed that Ned had attended SXSW, South by Southwest, earlier this year, likely in a networking or professional capacity under the Fulmer Media name. He hasn't returned to YouTube or podcasting, and there is no sign of any new public-facing content projects. Some Reddit users speculate that he might be involved in consulting, tech-related ventures, or even real estate, though none of this has been confirmed. So while Ned isn't completely gone from the professional world, he's clearly made the decision to take a step back from the spotlight. He seems to be repositioning himself as a media entrepreneur, hoping to rebuild his career quietly, far away from the very public collapse of his former image. After everything we've discussed, from the glossy rise of Ned Fulmer as a beloved wife guy to the dramatic downfall that shocked the internet, it's hard not to walk away from this story with a mix of emotions, disappointment, confusion, and maybe a little bit of grim clarity. This wasn't just a case of someone cheating. It was the collapse of a carefully curated persona, a public image that revolved around love, loyalty, and family values, only to be shattered by private decisions that contradicted everything he once stood for. The ripple effect was massive. Fans felt betrayed. The Try Guys, a group built on camaraderie and trust, had to scramble to hold their brand together, make painful decisions, and publicly distance themselves from a close friend. Ariel, Ned's wife, was thrust into the spotlight against her will, forced to navigate an unimaginable situation while being dissected by the internet. And then there's Alex and her ex-fiancé, collateral damage in a drama that none of them likely imagined would become international news. And yet, maybe that's the real takeaway from all this, that public personas aren't real. That the more curated, polished, and perfect someone seems online, the more likely it is that things behind the scenes don't match. That people are flawed, deeply, stupidly flawed, and the internet has a way of turning those flaws into theater. We also need to be careful about where we direct our anger. This isn't about hating men or wives or even influencers. It's about holding people accountable when they market themselves as role models but act in ways that are the complete opposite. It's about realizing that some wife guys might just be regular guys using their relationship for clout, and that sometimes behind every perfect family photo or couples vlog, there's a lot of pain that we'll never see. So where do Ned and Ariel go from here? What does redemption even look like in a world that never forgets? We don't know. Maybe they're trying to make it work. Maybe they already called it quits. What's certain is that their story, once painted as picture perfect, now stands as a cautionary tale. about performative love, about parasocial relationships, about believing the internet too much. In the end, maybe the lesson isn't just about Ned, it's about all of us. The way we watch, believe, and sometimes worship people we don't really know. The way we forget that behind every smiling thumbnail is a real person, capable of lying, failing, and disappointing us, just like Ned did. With this, we'd like to wrap up the video. We genuinely tried our best to break down the entire Ned Fulmer scandal for you, from the golden days of Try Guys to the fall of the internet's most famous wife guy. If we happen to leave something out or missed a small detail, please understand that researching and putting together a video like this takes a lot of time, energy, and yes, it definitely gives you a bit of permanent brain rot. Trying to make sense of scandals, timelines, deleted posts, and vague Instagram stories is no easy task, but we do it because we love storytelling, and we love diving into these online mysteries with all of you. That being said, if you've made it into this video this far, then first of all, you're a real one. Please don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our deep dives in the future. Your support honestly means everything to us. Also, take a moment to drop a comment down below and let us know, what do you think about Ned Fulmer and his epic fall from grace? Do you believe he's truly sorry for what he did, or was it just damage control? Do you think this scandal could have been avoided? And most importantly, how did it make you feel as a fan, or maybe even just a casual viewer, seeing someone build a whole brand around family values only to throw it all away in such a careless, public way? We'd especially love to hear from longtime Try Guys fans. What did this moment mean for you? Did it change how you viewed the group? And do you think they handled it the right way? Let's talk in the comments. We'll be reading all of them. See you in the next video.